Number 5.
Undefeated is a free game available on Steam and PlayStation, which was created by a team of game dev students using Unreal Engine 4. It's basically a Superman simulator which takes place in a small open world, and it garnered a lot of attention from the very beginning, with the first tweet of in-development footage getting over 5,000 retweets and almost 10,000 likes. In an interview on the Unreal Engine blog, the student team consisting of 2 programmers and 1 character designer explain how seeing the warm reception to their tweet was very motivating, and they couldn't wait to boot up Unreal Engine every day right after waking up. They started work on Undefeated at the beginning of their 3rd semester and used Unreal Engine 4.16 at the beginning. However, they kept on updating the project to new versions as development went on to be able to implement new features or new assets from the marketplace, with the Steam version now using Unreal Engine 4.27. They also mentioned a few more details about their workflow and how they use the Alright Rig plugin to create animations directly inside of Unreal, and not having to learn Blender and switch back and forth between both programs saved them a lot of time. And as you probably know, with Unreal Engine 5 we now have modeling, rigging and animation tools built into the engine with no need to use a third-party plugin like that. Since they didn't have a 3D artist on the team, they used many free assets from the marketplace, many of which you probably recognize. The main map, for example, is just Downtown by Polypixel. And they also made heavy usage of the particle effects from Infinity Blade, but they did make adjustments to the textures and emitters to better fit the style of their game. The article also mentions how the entire game was made with blueprints, since through profiling they found out that even after many optimizations to their levels, it was still the GPU that was the bottleneck, and there would be no benefit to moving over to C++. In addition, they mentioned how getting good with blueprints really made them understand object-oriented programming, and after spending a lot of time with them, they had a much easier time following along with the C++ classes at their school. In February 2025, Undefeated reached over 3 million downloads between the Steam and PlayStation version, and this led to the team receiving an Epic Mega Grant for the sequel Undefeated Genesis, which is currently in development. Before we move on to the next game, a quick word from this video's sponsor, Coursera. Coursera is a learning platform that offers access to online courses and degrees from leading universities and companies. It also hosts multiple courses created by Epic Games, and the one I want to highlight in this video is the Epic Games Game Design Professional Certificate. While you'll also use Unreal Engine in this course, it actually focuses more on game design principles, how to write game design documents, level design, user experience, and so on, making it quite different from the majority of other Unreal courses you'll find out there. In the last chapter, you'll plan out a complete game with multiple game modes and create it using the knowledge you acquired in all prior chapters, and by completing the course you'll earn a certificate by Epic Games. Use the promo link in the description to find the course and get 40% off for 3 months of Coursera Plus.
Number 4.
Fire Girl Hack and Splash Rescue DX is a 2D-3D hybrid using sprites for the characters and 3D models for the environments, created with Unreal Engine 4.27. It was a moderate success, selling about 5,000 copies and reaching an estimated gross revenue of around $30,000 on Steam, while also being available on all modern consoles. And it also received an Epic Mega Grant to support the development. According to one of the developers who I reached out to, they wanted to create a retro-inspired game, which is why they opted for sprites. But they also wanted to have modern real-time lighting because it would work nicely with the flames and overall theme of the game. And you can see them use emissive sprite materials on many occasions. He said they created the game without the PaperZD plugin, just using vanilla Paper 2D, and I noticed they did some interesting things for the animation where you shoot water while aiming, and I believe they're using sockets and multiple layers of flipbooks to allow the arms to rotate smoothly. They also do something cool in the long hallways where the camera slightly switches to an angle to be more dynamic and allow you to look a bit further ahead of your character. The game was created with a team of 5 people, with 1 programmer, 3 artists and 1 composer, but the publisher also offered a lot of help and took care of porting the game to consoles. In total, it took them 3 years to create the PC version, and they kept supporting the game for an additional year with updates and improvements. He also mentioned that the game was created entirely with blueprints and there was no need to use any C++.
Number 3.
Echo Point Nova is a movement shooter with wide open areas created in Unreal Engine 4.27. It was created by the same solo developer Greylock Studio, who also made Severed Steel, which I covered in the last episode. Again, the game was a huge success with over 200,000 units sold and an estimated gross revenue of roughly $3 million. In many ways, this game is an evolution of Severed Steel and includes many elements he originally wanted to have in his previous game, like vehicles, wide open areas, and even online co-op with up to 4 players. And this time around, he actually had the time and necessary experience to make these features a reality. I believe this is a great example of how to slowly work towards your end goal by making smaller games that include a subset of the features you eventually need in your dream game. This allows you to basically build up a library of knowledge and elements you can reuse, and hopefully also some semi-passive income you can then use to fund your future titles. There's a podcast episode by 31 Below with the developer, and it gives us some more insight on the development of Echo Point Nova. The game actually started out as an open-world RPG, but he ended up pivoting to what works and what he's already experienced with to prevent feature creep and scope creep. While he was originally excited about Lumen when it was announced because of how good the synergy with voxel-based worlds would be, after actually giving it a try, it turned out that the performance cost wasn't worth it, and he wanted to keep the barrier of entry as low as possible, and not only passed on Lumen, but also decided to stay on Unreal Engine 4.27 for this project instead of updating to Unreal Engine 5. Another point he brought up is how he strongly believes in putting out demos and getting community feedback to make adjustments based on that, and overall the podcast has great advice for indie developers, so I attached it to the link in the description.
Number 2.
Massacre at the Mirage is a first-person survival horror game where you control multiple different characters, and it was created with Unreal Engine 5.4. This is yet another title by the solo developer Tainted Pact, who also made Suffer the Night and Terror at Oakheart, which I talked about in different episodes. He said that a big inspiration for this title was the Terrifier movie, and he was extremely happy with how much people enjoyed the game. Massacre at the Mirage actually got a lot of coverage on YouTube, with many videos getting hundreds of thousands and even millions of views, which played a big part in the game selling around 8,000 copies and reaching a gross revenue of roughly $70,000 on Steam. The development of this game took around 8 months, which is quite a bit shorter than his previous 3D title, and I believe this is around the time where the developer really started to hit his stride. Again, the gameplay was programmed entirely with blueprints, but this time around he did use a little bit of C++ for shader-related things. Even though the initial demo of the game supported Lumen for global illumination, for the full release of the game he decided to not rely on Lumen for overall better performance. But by using some magic, I forcefully turned on Lumen again, and it does add a lot to the game visually, especially in areas with bright neon lights. He is currently working on a new game called The Skin Stapler, which is a bit of a callback to the slasher horror style he established in Massacre at the Mirage.
Number 1.
Pumpkin Jack is a PlayStation 2 style platformer similar to titles like Jak and Daxter, which was created with Unreal Engine 4.25. It managed to sell over 250,000 copies and reached a gross revenue of around $2 million on Steam, while also being available on Switch, Xbox, and PlayStation. Pumpkin Jack is the first commercial game of an, at the time, 22-year-old solo developer. When starting this project, he actually considered going with Unity since he heard it's beginner-friendly, but when giving it a try, he had a really hard time getting things to look good. Even though Unreal has a reputation of being hard to pick up, for him it actually ended up feeling a lot more natural, and he ended up getting much better results in a shorter amount of time. The game was actually created 100% in blueprints, which allowed for fast iteration. He also mentioned how he especially loves the debug tools, which allowed him to see in real time which part of a blueprint is executing at what time. He also said that the cartoony stylized look came from him wanting to keep things simple and not wanting to spend too much time on creating highly detailed assets. As always, a huge thanks to my awesome patrons and YouTube channel members.